Good morning, Cowboys Nation, and welcome to another episode of the Writer's Block podcast. I am your host, David Howman, joined, as always, by my two great co-hosts, Brandon Clements and Chris Halling. For those of you watching on our YouTube channel, you do notice Chris is just his profile picture, and for those of you that are watching it, what a treat, because it is a dapper profile picture.
Dude, I was going to say dapper too.
Yeah,
thank you.
He's having issues with his webcam because, unlike some of us more elevated folk, he uses Apple for his laptops. Oh. So, Chris, go ahead, defend yourself, and also just say hi.
Hey, listen, I've been having issues. I think Apple. I think they're trying to make me buy the newest version of the iMac. I don't know. I mean, like, mine's pretty old, and I put a lot of miles on it. I would say I have a lot of stuff on it because I used it all through college, and now I'm using it for work, and it's just it's just breaking down on me. But I'm so excited that you guys can hear my voice, and I think it's a pretty handsome profile picture. I know that I mean, I know that you're not able to see my actual moving face, but I mean, at least you get to look at this, so I'll take it.
Yeah, no, it's a good profile picture. Honestly, if I had one that looked that good, I would quote unquote have camera issues every single week. And just roll with that. So
it's nice.
But also, me and Brandon, we get to show our beautiful faces, which is also good for us because we have illustrious beards.
Yes,
that we get to stroke our beards and appear wise as we're giving all of our takes. Brandon, your beard is a little bit shorter than mine, so I guess that means a little bit less wisdom, but you still have plenty of good takes that we can get into later. But how are you doing right now with training camp being back in the full swing of things?
I'm so glad training camp is back. I mean, it's great to hear these hot takes, which I know we're going to get into in a little bit, because I know that's going to be the title of the show with kind of who's hot, who's not at this point. It's for me, I'm looking forward to the upcoming preseason game. That's going to be a good barometer for certain players, and I'm looking forward to that. Yeah. The beard, actually, I have to keep it shorter because per my wife's request. So I like to keep the wife happy. As a married man, I got to keep the wife happy, and happy wife, happy life. So shout out to the missus. Plus, the longer it grows too, I'm the elder statesman. I get a few grays in here, so you can't really see it in the light right now. But I'm getting old. That's just kind of how it goes. I get grays, and I'm growing plenty here. I'm getting a little lighter on top, but that's status quo for getting my close to my mid-30s now. So it's great. Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. Well, and like you alluded to, we're close to getting a Cowboys preseason game too. The next time that we're coming to you guys with the next episode of the Writer's Block, we will have already had a Cowboys preseason game coming up this Sunday, and of course we will have had the opportunity to watch that game, grind the tape as we always do, run the advanced analysis and all the statistics that I'm sure they're going to run on all these very meaningful preseason games. The Cowboys haven't played one yet, but we did get our first preseason game with the Hall of Fame game between the Bears, the Texans. Not a single starter played in that one. And as it happens, going into the third quarter, they had a weather delay and ended up canceling the game entirely. Did either of you guys watch it? Because I know from myself, like, I sat through and watched the whole thing to the extent that there was a whole thing. Obviously, it didn't finish out, but I just felt like such a complete football degenerate and sicko watching these players with names that I've never heard in my life. Are you guys as diseased as I am with craving football again, or did you sit this one out?
Well, I mean, trust me, I definitely wanted to, but I was really busy with work stuff, and I just didn't really have the time anyway. I mean, like, don't get me wrong. If it had been a Cowboys regular season game, I would have maybe found my way out of it and, made sure that I was available to watch it. But I wasn't too concerned about missing it. I mean, really, I think the biggest draw to that game would have been watching Caleb Williams play. And the fact that he didn't play kind of took the interest out of it a little bit. And also, I think the other big draw would be to watch how the kickoffs look. And even with that, I mean, it didn't look that crazy from what I saw, but I mean, I feel like it'll look a lot crazier with Kevontae Turpin being the one back there. I think that this is the year he finally gets a regular season touchdown, because it seems like I've never seen a returner get so close so often, and there's like one last guy who he doesn't beat. And
It's such a
so
Cowboys thing, though, like getting so
it is.
close without actually doing the thing.
Well, no. I mean, hey, listen. I mean, if you go back and you rewatch that 49ers Cowboys loss in the divisional round, there was a hole for Kevontae Turpin to bring back that return. I can't remember if it was a punt or a kickoff, but it would have completely changed the game, I believe. And I mean, I see this picture all the time, and it just haunts me because he takes clearly the wrong hole, and if he takes that other one, then it could have been a tie game. So it's just one of those plays. It's almost like that play in 2014 whenever DeMarco Murray fumbled against the Packers. Like he could have scored that probably, and that fumble changed the game. That's really the decision maker there, I feel like, more than the Dez catch, because if he scores there, that game could have been over. And but anyway, let's not just keep looking back on all the failures. Let's get excited that football is coming back, and hopefully
we're getting ready for a new season. We don't have to think about all the heartbreak in the past.
Exactly.
Well, I'll jump in with this Hall of Fame talk. I mean, to Chris's point, it was, obviously the Cowboys, you just got to do what you got to do to figure it out and make sure you watch the game. Doesn't matter if it's a meaningless game or not. I'm watching the Cowboys game no matter what. I'll figure that out. I mean, if Caleb Williams was in the game, I would have probably watched it. I think the biggest name that I remember watching from what I did watch the Hall of Fame game was Roschon Johnson. I remember he played at Texas. He was a good player. That was like one of the names that I was like, I'll watch for a minute. And of course, I had to make sure I tuned in for Syracuse legend Dwight Freeney getting in the Hall of Fame. Shout out to the greatest spin move of all time. Love the fact that a Syracuse guy is in the Hall of Fame. Well deserved. Great guy. I don't know how great of a golfer he is because he was on Pat McAfee's show recently talking golf. So, but Dwight Freeney, I had to watch. I mean, Syracuse, of course, obviously everybody knows that my love for Syracuse, being born and raised and residing in Syracuse. So that's what I was really tuning in for, is just to see Dwight Freeney wearing that beautiful jacket, representing the orange. But and speaking of the Hall of Fame, Devin Hester, who obviously knows a thing or two about kicking, returning kicks, kind of called it shaky, the new kickoff rule. So I had to watch a little bit of that. I mean, it's early. I mean, I'm one of those people. We'll wait to see what happens. But to Chris's point, let's see what Terp can do when he gets the ball in his hands, because we obviously know he's probably the fastest guy in the field. So electricity in his veins. He'll I'm sure he'll take one to the house finally this year.
Yeah, and I mean, I really watched the Hall of Fame game to see the kickoff in action. It was a little shaky, but that was also largely because the field conditions were like, the field was just completely soaked. There were guys slipping all over the place. So between that and this also being the first time that we've actually done this new kickoff rule, not in a practice environment, I think contributed to that. But all in all, I mean, I think it's really cool. I love when the XFL had this same kind of setup, which was where the NFL kind of took it from. I think it's a really exciting innovation in the game. So seeing that in action was fun. The rest of the game can't really speak too much to it. Like you guys said, no Caleb Williams, no CJ Stroud, which we all kind of knew was going to be the case anyway. I always find it fun though, just like hearing these players that I've never heard of, like Texans. I think it was the Texans tight end. His name's Tegan Quitoriano. He caught a touchdown, and I was like, "There's no way that's a real person." Like Tegan Quitoriano, that's a 2-star green gem tight end you recruit in CFB 25, right, Chris?
Yeah.
That's
Hey,
like,
I've been on that game heavy.
What was that?
Hey, listen, I was going to say I've been on that game heavy, and recruiting is not easy.
Oh, it is definitely not easy. Not as easy as Brandon thinks it will be for Syracuse with Fran Brown, but we're not going to get into that because we have plenty of other stuff to talk about in this episode. As we talked about, training camp is in full swing. Today, Tuesday, the Cowboys will mark their 10th practice of training camp. It's been flying by. We've seen some players really step up and catch us by surprise. Some have done kind of the opposite, and some of them have looked just exactly as we expected them to be. So we're all going to kind of go around and list the one guy that's really turned our head and really like caught our eye so far in training camp with these few practices we've had so far. So Chris, who is the one who's really caught your eye the most so far in camp?
Yeah, so I would say that the guy who's caught my eye the most would be 5th round rookie Kalen Carson. You know, he was a guy. I actually wrote an article for Blogging the Boys, and it was training camp battles to keep an eye on. And you know, I said that, hey, listen, you know, I think a lot of people were assuming that Jordan Lewis would come in and just be the starter right off the bat because he's a veteran, and you know, he has kind of a ball, you know, I wouldn't say ball hawking ability, but he just has a knack for turning or, you know, forcing takeaways and you know, just being in the right place at the right time whenever the ball's loose. But listen, Kalen Carson is going to compete for that, and that's what he's doing so far. I mean, for starters, he's bigger than Jordan Lewis, and you know, from what I've seen, it almost seems like he's a little more physical with him too. He's not afraid to be rough and you know hit, and he's not afraid to you know just be right there in the action and you know just be a physical tackling corner, which is exactly I think what Mike Zimmer is looking for in his slot corner. And you know, I saw you know in the first scuffle of camp, you know, it was Brevin spin. It was Brevin span Ford, and Kalen Carson kind of got into it. And listen, Ford is 6'7" and 270, and Kalen Carson is 6', 195. So I mean, to be that much smaller than a guy and still not be afraid to go in and just battle with him. You know, I think it speaks a lot to the you know, I would guess like I guess I would say like the mental aspect of that player. And you know, he's been getting a lot of pass breakups and takeaways. He actually had a nice takeaway against Trey Lance, who we'll be talking about a little bit later here. And no, I mean, I really think that Kalen Carson could end up being the starter at some point this year. I mean, I think it will be interesting to see how soon and if it will happen. But I mean, you know, I think it makes you know, a lot of Cowboys fans feel a little bit better about not bringing back Stephon Gilmore because, I mean, I will say first and foremost, I was one of those guys that wanted the Cowboys to bring back Stephon Gilmore just out of, just out of what I saw from him last year. I thought that he had good moments last year, especially, you know, that game against the Eagles where he was really, you know, kind of strapping up AJ Brown. I think that was the best game of the season. And, you know, to just have a veteran in the locker room. But I mean, I get it. I mean, I know that you're not going to put Deron Bland right back in the slot after what he did last year. So, I mean, it kind of takes away what skills Stephon Gilmore brings because he's not quick enough to be in the slot, you know, at this point in his career. I feel like if Stephon Gilmore is not playing the outside corner, maybe you put him at safety. And, you know, I don't think the Cowboys are necessarily thinking that route either. So, you know, but with Kalen Carson stepping up like this, I think that's, you know, I think it's okay that Stephon Gilmore's not in the locker room. And listen, if you're a cornerback and you're coming into the league, what better team would you rather be being developed by right now? And that sounds nuts to say, as being a fan of the Cowboys, because there was a period where I was frustrated every single year because the Cowboys just wouldn't prioritize the secondary, it felt like, and you know, they just weren't able to get that guy. And now, you know, hey, listen, I saw that the Madden top 10 cornerback list came out, and neither Deron Bland or Trayvon Diggs were in the top 10 in that. That's ridiculous. I think that they're both maybe top 5 cornerbacks. And listen, I think that you have them both on the outside. Those are great guys to learn from. You also have Al Harris as the DB coach. I mean, I think he's going to bring the best out of Kalen Carson, and you have a good defensive coordinator in Mike Zimmer. I think Kalen Carson is going to be a dog, and you know, I think it's really good to find playmakers in that 5th round area because you know that's also where Deron Bland was drafted. And you know, so I mean, it kind of seems to be a sweet spot for the Cowboys in that secondary. And you know, I think that you know, if you're going to keep Deron Bland, I mean, it's going to look like a very expensive cornerback room, you know. And so I think it's good to maybe have a cheap contract in there in the mix as well. So Kalen Carson can play better than his contract value. I think that would be huge for the Cowboys.
Yeah, and to your point, Bland's contract window is coming up soon too.
Exactly. Yeah,
so
I think that's a guy who people aren't really talking about. Who you know, I mean, like that's a guy who's going to have a big.
It's because we're still talking about Dak and CD, and like those guys are going to be a lot. And then the next one we know is Micah, and Micah's going to be a lot.
Yeah,
but then
I mean,
like, it doesn't stop after
it's
that.
a tough situation because I mean, like you have 2 players who want to be the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL, and then you also have a quarterback who is who is likely going to be the highest paid quarterback or highest paid player in the NFL.
Yeah.
And then you have a cornerback who is definitely worthy of being one of the highest paid corners as well, if you're just judging based off, how contracts work. So, and, it would suck to lose DaRon Bland, but I mean, it's going to be one of those, questions like, I mean, are you really going to invest that much in, 2 cornerbacks? I mean, it kind of, I think it's going to be difficult. And, it's kind of to the point too, where, I mean, we could argue that DaRon Bland is the better cornerback than Trayvon Diggs as well, if Trayvon Diggs doesn't come back and look really, really good, after his injury. So, I mean, it's going to be very interesting, but the Cowboys aren't doing themselves any favors right now with their contracts. They have to get them done if they want to, I guess move on and progress through this. Hey, listen, I'm still blown away that CD hasn't been signed. I thought that, maybe Deck could drag out a little bit. I'm not as surprised about that, but I thought CD would be done by now, especially with Justin Jefferson signing his deal. I thought that kind of opened the door for CD to get at least done, because I think that is what CD was waiting on.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, with the contract situation, look, I don't even know what to say at this point, because I'm right there with you, Chris. Like, I thought it would have been done by now. I thought it was going to get done like months ago, and it's not. But
nope.
I mean, they got to get it done, especially because, as you said, then it's Bland, and then there's a couple of other guys too that are you got to pay, and you're not going to pay them cheap contracts. But obviously, Kalen Carson coming in and looking the way that he has, like you said, Chris, I don't think he's going to be a starter week 1, just because Trayvon and Bland are your guys outside. Jordan Lewis is going to be the guy in the slot. But you do know that, we know Bland is good in the slot. He's just probably a little bit better on the outside. So you can move him in there if you need. If there's issues on the outside, whatever it may be. Like Kalen Carson, he looks great on the outside so far. Brandon, thoughts on Carson, and then outside of Kalen Carson, because we've already covered him. Who's the other guy that's really been turning your head?
Yeah, I mean, Carson is he's a good player. He was good at Purdue. Familiar with him. He played against Syracuse on multiple occasions. So I'm familiar with him. He's a good football player. So when the Cowboys drafted him in the 5th round, I thought it was good value. I figured he could have been an early, or I'd say like a late day 2 kind of pick. Like I figure like a 3rd rounder. He has a lot of intangibles. He's confident, which he's got that attitude that I love with cornerbacks. I mean, if you look at his social media, it's a walking seatbelt. So you know what that for all the for the old folks like myself out there, just means he's locking people down. That's just how it goes.
Thank you for the translation.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you guys know. You guys are the young bucks compared to me. So the old guy he knows what that is. But no, Kalen Carson he's a hell of a football player. He's a dog. He's 6 foot, 195. It's good size for a corner. I'm good with that. And he just wants to get in there and just make plays. I think. Right now, and I believe Patrick Nosey Walker of DallasCowboys.com did put out there that he's working primarily on the outside, Kalen Carson is. So I don't expect him to do anything in regards to Jordan Lewis and that job per se. I think at this point he's going to be the third. He's going to be the third cornerback on the outside. So I think he comes in if somebody gets hurt, God forbid. Or maybe there's they're running four receivers. He's going to definitely be on the field. To me, I think he's probably the 3rd best cornerback on the roster right now. I think that's just kind of where I know it's early. I still Jordan Lewis is kind of my guy. I've always been a fan of his, but Kalen Carson is really good. He's a stud. I think he's going to be a really good football player, and he's going to give the Cowboys some flexibility when it comes to paying some players, where he's still going to be on a rookie deal for a little while. So I think that's going to be a good thing. And, I think this is the kind of guy that Mike Zimmer wanted on the team. So I think he's a great fit for what Mike Zimmer's looking to do on defense. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Kalen Carson does in 2024. Now, for me, I know it's kind of the low-hanging fruit because he was a first-round pick this past year. But Tyler Guyton, to me, he's just, he's turned my head. And here's the thing. It's just by a couple clips of him, taking care of the Lion himself, Micah freaking Parsons, my unicorn. The way Tyler Guyton just gets off the ball, like he's an athletic freak, and he he didn't let Micah win. Like, and he was doing the same thing with D-Law. I was reading different reports out there. Like, D-Law sees it. Teammates, Tyler Smith, Dak Prescott are seeing it. Like, obviously he's not Tyron Smith. I think we all know that Tyron Smith's going to be a Hall of Famer someday. But early samples are looking
for now.
good. For now, I mean,
for now he's not Tyron Smith, but who knows?
Not yet. But I will say this: anybody that still thinks Chuma Edoga is going to be the starting left tackle week 1 should stop hanging out with Snoop Dogg. I'm just saying, because Tyler Guyton is going to start on week 1. That to me, that as long as he shows up in preseason and does enough and keeps doing what he's doing, you can't keep a guy off the field. Number one, he was a first-round pick. Number two, he like even in those short clips against Micah Parsons, he shows the ability. And when he keeps a guy like Micah Parsons at bay, I don't care if he still has a little, there's some little technique things that obviously he's still raw from that perspective, footwork, things like that. But he's still, even if he's not, he gets off the ball maybe a little funky, or he takes a step the wrong way. He's so athletic that he can make up for that mistake. Like that's how talented Tyler Guyton is as a left tackle. And for me, like he's been a standout. And anybody with 2 eyes can see that Tyler Guyton should be the starting left tackle week 1. It's as simple as that. And anybody that thinks otherwise, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, Tyler Guyton's just balling out so far.
Yeah, I've been really impressed with Tyler Guyton, especially because like the last time we saw him, we were all talking about like, oh, how's his transition going from moving to the right to the left? And Guyton said on the first or second day of camp, he was like, didn't go on any vacation, like didn't spend any time out of the practice field. Like I just was working with Duke Manyweather, learning and practicing and just getting my footwork down to play the left side. And man, it shows. Like he came in, he looks comfortable on the left side. He looks comfortable, like you said, going up against Micah Parsons. Like, granted it's preseason, it's training camp. At that point, the pads weren't on yet either. How hard is everybody going? How hard is Micah Parsons going at this early in camp and everything? But still, it's still Micah Parsons, and you're still completely just like stoning him up, and like he can't move. The second Guyton got his hands on Micah, like he stopped moving. So it is it's encouraging to say the least. And I think it's funny how like we've both gone through now. Both Chris and Brandon gone through Tyler Guyton, Kalen Carson. 2 rookies are the ones that are really catching our eye. Chris, has Guyton caught your eye as much as Brandon as it has been for Brandon and I?
I think he's been very impressive. I think it's always impressive when you're able to get a guy who is playing at a different position than he played throughout college. He played right tackle throughout his time in college, and now he's at left. And listen, I've seen some of these videos of him going up against Micah, and Micah gets such a fast jump off the ball. I think he's got one of the fastest, jumps off the line, across the league, right up there with, a Myles Garrett or a Max Crosby or a TJ Watt. And he gets by Tyler Guyton for like a half second, but then Tyler Guyton shows his athleticism, and he's able to move with him quickly and kind of push him behind where Dak Prescott is, allowing him to step up a little bit. And just to see that, and talk about a luxury too for Guyton to be able to practice every day against Micah Parsons. If you are practicing against, I think, the best edge rusher in the NFL every single day in practice, it's going to make going up against the average player in the NFL a lot easier, I feel like. So yeah, I think that
keep in mind that his NFL debut for Tyler Guyton is coming against Myles Garrett, who if Mike is not your number 1 edge rusher, it's probably Myles Garrett.
Probably Myles Garrett, exactly. Yeah. So it's not going to be easy. Here's the thing. I still think that you got to try and double Myles as much as you can, especially when you have a rookie, or at least have Ezekiel Elliott on that, left side of Dak, as pass protection or something to help him out a little bit. Cause I think it's a tall task to, have your rookie left tackle going up against Myles Garrett the entire game. But, I think it's definitely impressive. And, he honestly reminds me a lot of the other Tyler that's going to be next to him, just because, when Tyler Smith got drafted, his whole questions was also his fundamentals and his technique. I mean, it wasn't the size. The reason the Cowboys loved him as a prospect is that he was, he was a massive, strong, quick, athletic guy. And, and like they trusted themselves to be able to develop him. And I think that that's the same recipe that they're trying to, replicate with a Tyler Guyton, is because, he has all the measurables there. And, like even Tyler Smith talked about it in camp. He was like, it's been, it's very uncommon to see someone that big who's able to move the way that he does. And so, like there's some stuff that you can't teach, and that's size. So, I mean, I was one of those guys that was I wasn't doubting the pick because of Tyler Smith. I think if Tyler Smith hadn't worked out, I would have been a lot more, hesitant when that Tyler Guyton selection had happened. But, I figured, hey, listen, Tyler Smith worked out. And, I think that we're going to see kind of a similar development. And listen, if Tyler Guyton can have any type of a rookie year similar to what Tyler Smith had his rookie year at left tackle, then I think that this left side of the offensive line is going to be very formidable.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited to see the Tylers play together. And one thing that's really struck me about Guyton so far too is you see the football IQ coming off too, in the way that like he works with Tyler Smith and the way he's worked with some of the other offensive linemen in terms of like just their chemistry with each other, working against some of these things that the defense is throwing at him. Which brings me to the guy that's turned my head the most so far in training camp. And I'm cheating a little bit here because it's not a player, but it's defensive coordinator Mike Zimmer, because we've gotten to see some really creative stuff so far already in camp with the way that this defense is lining up. Notably, Micah Parsons, they're moving him everywhere. Like he's playing at off-ball linebacker. They're moving him around. They're playing him on the edge on both sides. He's lining up in the A-gap for that famous double mug front that Mike Zimmer loves to run. He's using him in a lot of different ways, and he's also talking about how like we're going to put him in an area where the defense has to adjust based on where he's at because he's in a different spot every play. And then if they're sending everything to the side that he's on, like we may be dropping him back in coverage, or even if he's rushing, like our primary rusher, though, is coming from the other side. And I think that's kind of like there were moments where we saw with Dan Quinn and his defense where like they had some of that. But then ultimately he got into a point where like Mike is pretty much just rushing off the edge. He didn't really embrace all that multiplicity that Micah brings as a player. And I think so far what we've been seeing with the defense in terms of scheme and in terms of some of the creative things that they've been doing, Jalen Brooks had a quote from Monday's practice even where he said, he was like, they're disguising things in the coverage schemes like so much more than I've ever seen in my life. Granted, Jalen Brooks is, it's not like he's seen a million defenses, not a grizzled vet out there, but Chris can attest. He knows his stuff. Like he's a smart player. And if he's sitting there saying like, they're making it so hard on us to run our routes and know how to adjust to the coverage. And that's just in training camp. Like, somebody like Mike Zimmer is going to have more things to throw out there once they get to the actual games. So I've been really impressed with Mike Zimmer, just what we've seen from some of these defensive players, the way he's using guys. And I'm really excited to see that once we get to the preseason, especially to the regular season.
Speaking of Jalen Brooks, just interrupt you real quick. Are you guys proud / surprised that he wasn't the guy who I picked, who has impressed me and turned my head in training camp?
Very shocked.
I was about to say, I feel like that would have been, an easy one for me, but I'm not shocked because this is what I expected. I told you he's coming for the wide receiver 3 spot. So,
Jalen Brooks looks great. You're not surprised by that?
I'm not surprised by it. He's playing awesome. And, I think both Jalen's are playing great. And, I think that your little, theory, Brandon, that Ryan Flournoy is going to come in and be wide receiver 3. I think it's looking a little suspect right now. I think it's looking like a freezing cold take.
It's early. Ryan Flournoy just had his first padded practice, so the Ryan Flournoy time is coming. Don't you worry.
Well, and on that note too, because we talked about the guys that have caught our attention the most. Some of the guys have not had the greatest start to camp so far, and of course with this first preseason game, like I always say, like the first couple weeks of training camp is like guys will make a name for themselves, but if it doesn't carry over into the preseason games, it doesn't really matter. So this can be the moment where even if you haven't had a great start, you can change things. So Brandon, not going to give anything away, but makes for a nice transition. Who's the player that you need to see more from right now?
I mean, we kind of already teed that up just a little bit. Yeah, I mean, it is my guy Ryan Flournoy. I mean, let's just be honest. I mean, he's been dealing with a knee situation. His knee's been banged up. I mean, he showed up, in the mini camp. He was showing out, showing up, and he looked great. And then he had the knee situation that was unfortunate and the unfortunate timing. But fortunately enough, he had his first padded practice today and was already making plays, which I'm not surprised because it's Ryan Flournoy. I think he's gonna do some great things. And I think, and I'm just, again, I'm guess I'm sort of joking here. Maybe he's just, he's just easing into things to give other guys hope, and then he's just going to come in and just slam the door on the rest of them. But no, in all seriousness, well, here's the thing: it really comes down to preseason football for me. Like the training camp is great. Like how many times, like no offense to like a Dennis Houston, but like he showed up in training camp, and then he played in one game and it was like okay, he didn't really do anything. So it's training camp is what it is. Like sure that could it translate to a game or a preseason game in general? Sure. But for me, as long as Ryan Flournoy gets a shot in the preseason, which, we have the game coming up, this coming Sunday against the Rams, I think that's where he's going to start showing up and showing out. And, it's going to be fun for me because I think he's going to be catching some dimes from Trey Lance, and maybe Trey Lance will start doing some things. But Ryan Flournoy to me, he just it's not because he hasn't done anything. Like it's more so his availability at this point. Like I know what kind of player he is. The guy's an athletic freak. His hands are like, I don't know if you guys remember the movie Little Giants. It might be before your time, but like the sticky stuff, like the stickum stuff, in Little Giants, where the kid that couldn't catch, he caught the ball because he had to stick him. Ryan Flournoy doesn't need that because his hands are naturally he just catches everything. It's just the way it goes. So, Ryan Flournoy, I think training camp, sure, he hasn't come out of the blocks great, but he's already getting his work in. He's looking good in drills. Receivers coach Prince, he's working hard with them and seemed impressed. I was listening to some of the audio, like that's how you do it kind of a thing. I'm kind of paraphrasing because you can't hear it all, but you can, Robert Prince was, clearly is pretty happy with what Ryan Flournoy's been putting in so far. And really quick too, and not to bounce back too far, but I gotta put some love on Kalen Carson. It's Wake Forest, not Purdue. That's my fault. Still played against Syracuse, so I got to factoid that. I was like, wait a second. I said Purdue earlier, so my bad to Kalen Carson. Don't lock me up or anything. Don't put me in the seatbelt. But yeah, to be fair, he did play against Syracuse, which again, I know who he is. The guy's a good football player. So regardless, but back to Ryan Flournoy. Yeah, Ryan Flournoy to me, it's just, I just want to see how he does with it, with the knee situation and see if that's going to be a lingering issue. He looked good in practice today, like in training camp, like he's looked good. I just need to see it in the preseason. If he doesn't ball out in preseason, then you know what, I'm okay to say that I'm wrong, but I feel confident that when the lights turn on and he's playing in the game, I think he'll be fine.
Yeah, when he gets that beautiful deep bomb 85-yard pass from Trey Lance,
you got it.
They're both going to step up because Trey Lance, like we've talked about him a lot on this show already.
Yeah.
All off season feels like every week somehow he comes up. And we know he's going to get a lot of reps in the preseason. And so far, like he's going to need them, right, Chris?
Yeah, that's my guy who's kind of been underwhelming so far, to say the least. And this is another freezing cold take by you, Brandon, because you said that Trey Lance was going to be the next quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys, and I'm seeing him all over the NFL meme pages, all over social media, throwing awful looking interceptions. I mean, there was one that he threw to Marquise Bell, and I mean, I don't know what he was looking at. He threw it right to him. There was no one around him. He literally just, he just gifted it to him.
It's training camp. It's fine. It'll be
Okay,
fine.
but listen, here's my thing.
Preseason ball.
Here's the thing. A lot of his snaps, right? He's working a lot with the second team. Yes, he's getting some reps with the first team just to mix it up. But I mean, he's going up against the second team Cowboys defense. I mean, what's going to happen when he's, if God forbid, knock on every wood around you, Dak Prescott got hurt and he was your backup quarterback. What's he going to do against, a Baltimore Ravens starting defense, a Pittsburgh Steelers starting defense? I mean, it's concerning. And my thing is this too. It's not just because it's not just because he's not playing great. I mean, to me, that's not that surprising. I think the bigger issue here is that, the Cowboys got rid of a 4th round pick for a guy who probably isn't the second best quarterback on their team, because Cooper Rush, I mean, if I'm correct, he's still undefeated as a starter in the NFL, I believe. And
he had the one loss.
He had the one.
It was to the Eagles,
Okay.
so we don't.
Okay.
We've purged that from our memories.
I was about to say, purge it. Either way, he has a really good record in the NFL. And if you look at this, so the Cowboys ended up trading the 24th overall pick in the 4th round. And if you look at the guys who were drafted after that pick, Bucky Irving out of Oregon would have been a great fit for the Cowboys. Will Shipley out of Clemson, Ray Davis running back, Braylon Allen.
Of course.
Braylon Allen running back out of Wisconsin. I mean, there's guys here who I think would have had an immediate, or I think that they would have had an immediate impact for the Cowboys at the running back position, at least in this whole running back by committee approach. And instead the Cowboys didn't have a pick to really settle for a development guy who could have somewhat of an impact. And even too, like, I think 4 picks before that pick, Jalen Wright got picked, and apparently the Cowboys were really interested in him. I think if they have that 4th round pick, they may have traded up and tried to get him. So, I think that when you get rid of, 4th round pick for a guy, you're expecting him to at least, have some kind of an impact. And this is a guy who, honestly, I mean, what if he gets cut? I'm not saying that he should get cut, but I mean, I don't really see the impact. He's not really doing anything. He's looking just.
Let's wait till the actual games happen in preseason.
All I'm gonna say is he needs to have a great training camp, because if not, he's the 3rd string again, and then that trade was completely useless because he's not your future quarterback at that point.
I'll counter that. If he balls out in preseason, anything that's happened in training camp will be a moot point. Because some guys just don't practice well. It's just that's a thing, or don't practice at all, like Allen Iverson didn't do back in the day. But
yeah, we're talking about
Trey Lance might just be better when the lights are on the game and he's playing the game. I mean, that some guys need that kind of.
That's why I say I need to see more out of him, because he hasn't shown it to me.
You're gonna see Sunday.
And hey, that's fair though. That's fair, Brandon, because like he hasn't. It would be one thing if like Trey Lance came in and like he wasn't throwing touchdowns, but also he wasn't throwing interceptions. If he just looked fine. It's the fact that like he's had some wonky throws, he's had some bad interceptions, and I mean, again, we went through this 2 years ago with like Dak and his interceptions. Like, are we really going to get riled up about training camp interceptions? But that said, there's also some of the throws that Trey Lance has made does not look like a guy that you want to be banking on being your next franchise quarterback.
Looks like a guy you don't even want to see touching the field, and
right.
That's one we traded a 4th round pick for. I mean, at least it's not as bad as, using the number 3 overall pick on him. It's worse for the 49ers, but, still, it's not great for us either, trading a 4th round pick.
And not only using the 3rd overall pick, but trading away a bunch of stuff to move up to the 3rd overall pick.
Yeah. But it worked out for him.
And then give up on them 2 years later.
I mean, I wouldn't say it worked out for the 49ers. Imagine if they had used that pick on something else. Maybe they would have won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, but look how good they were giving up all that capital. I mean, that's just kudos. I mean, I hate to say it, but kudos to the Niners. I mean, yeah, they flat out the pick didn't work out.
But that doesn't have anything to do with Trey Lance not being good. They just happen to be aggressive in other spots and making up for it.
Well, that's true. I mean, that's a valid point. But I mean, the point. I guess the point is Trey Lance. That maybe it wasn't a great pick for them at that point, giving up what they gave up. But it worked out. I mean, I know they want to win the Super Bowl, which like everybody does, but they've been there. They've been there consistently. They're consistent, Super Bowl contender. So I mean, obviously it's worked out, and I do think once the games are starting to play in the preseason, I think you'll see some Trey Lance. I think you're gonna see a good Trey Lance coming up.
But we'll see,
I
because if
hope
Trey
so.
Lance isn't performing well on Sunday, I'm gonna come in here on Monday and be like, "Are you? I'm about to say, is this still your number one, future quarterback?" Because I don't
Yeah,
know if
Chris
Dak
is
necessarily is
gonna be
either. I'm just
ready.
saying, I don't know if Trey. I definitely. Here's the thing. Just in terms of contract negotiations and the way things are going, I can't confidently say that Dak is the future quarterback for the Cowboys, but I can put any money you want in the world that Trey Lance isn't the future quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys.
Guess we'll see.
Well, and here's the other thing too: if Trey Lance comes out and does not play well in this first preseason game, Dak Prescott is going to be walking with some swagger into the building the next day, and he's going to walk right up to Jerry. Give me my money.
It's like that meme it's like that
Yeah.
meme where that coach is like, "Bring me," or "They better bring me my money."
Yeah. No, he's gonna do that meme, and I mean he already has all the leverage, but like if Trey Lance comes out and lays a dud, like that just adds one extra iota of leverage for Dak Prescott. But I mean, either way, regardless of Dak contract negotiations, I would like to see more from Trey Lance too, because I'm not worried about the pick that they gave up, because that part's already done. Like they gave up that pick, they made that trade. That's not going away no matter how he plays. But just for the talent, the raw physical talent that Trey Lance has, if he is able to play good football in the preseason, he is an upgrade as a backup quarterback over Cooper Rush. All due respect to Cooper Rush. I mean, he's 5-1 as a starter. Like he knows the scheme inside and out. Like they trust him. You can't overrate that. But the fact that Trey Lance is as fast as he has as strong an arm as he has, if he can put it together and play the way that people thought he was going to be able to coming out of college, like that's a really good backup quarterback situation to have.
Exactly.
But you got to see it first, and we haven't seen it yet.
I believe in Trey.
Why I think it was apropos for Chris to put him in his needs to see more. And for the one that I want to see more from, sticking with the same side of the field, sticking with the offense, we talked about like Trey Lance and giving up that 4th round pick. They gave up that 4th round pick, but they also, through another trade, gained a 3rd round pick that they used on a guy that we were all very fired up about, and that's Cooper Beebe. And that's who I need to see more from, because we all kind of expected Cooper Beebe is going to be the starting center. They come out in the very first practice of training camp, and Cooper Beebe's 2nd string behind Brock Hoffman, but also Tyler Guyton was 2nd string behind Chuma Adoga. So like we knew, okay, the Cowboys are doing this thing. Same thing they did with Tyler Smith, right? Rookie has to earn it. Tyler Guyton got into the 1st string very quickly, and he earned it. And Cooper Beebe was having some issues with his snaps. Doesn't help that Brock Hoffman has also looked genuinely good working with the first team. But I mean, we're going on practice number 10, and Cooper Beebe hasn't broken into the 1st string yet. And, if it's a situation where we get to week 1 and Brock Hoffman is, far and away has earned that starting spot at center, more power to him. But you draft a guy like Cooper Beebe, you see what he brings you from a football IQ standpoint, from a physicality standpoint, from an agility standpoint. And it's just tough it's tough to envision that he doesn't break through into that 1st string center debate before we get to week 1. I would be a little bit disappointed, even though he was a 3rd round pick. I just feel like there's high expectations for him based on what we've seen him be able to do, based on the work that he's been putting in. So especially with this being the preseason as opposed to training camp, like, it's hard to judge offensive linemen in training camp because you're just in practice. Even with pads on, like that makes it a little bit easier, but you can't really put a lot of stock into what these guys do until you get into a game and simulate those game-like conditions with the preseason. And hopefully that's an opportunity where Cooper Beebe just like flips the switch, plays like the guy at Kansas State, plus snapping the ball. And, as I think about like what I really need to see, because you can go down the line of all these other projected starters and, there's really not most of these projected starters have looked good throughout training camp so far. Like even there's still a debate between like Jalen Tolbert, Jalen Brooks. They both looked good. Whoever wins the job, like they both look great so far in camp. But Cooper Beebe, you want him to be the starting center. A lot of people still project him to be the starter. We just haven't seen it from him yet. So I'm going to be watching him when he subs in on Sunday.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's a good pick, Howman, because I think we kind of had him already penciled in once he got drafted, and we heard that the Cowboys are going to move him to center. Like, we kind of already had him penciled in and just assumed that he was going to take that role, and it has been kind of disappointing to this point. Again, it's training camp. Same rules apply for Ryan Flournoy and Trey Lance. Let's get him in the game. You just mentioned it. Get him in the game on Sunday. Let's see how he does, and and also shout out to Brock Hoffman for standing his ground and doing what maybe many didn't think he could do, and that's hold on to the job. I know it's early. And I know it's we're just getting into August. The first preseason game for Dallas hasn't happened yet, but you just mentioned it. Brock Hoffman is locked in right now in the on the first team, and Cooper Beebe just hasn't cracked it yet, and that just tells me everything I need to know about where Brock Hoffman is at this point. So it's really going to come down to, in my opinion, I think it's going to come down to how these two fare in the preseason. I think the training camp, we'll see as it goes, if there's going to be a split of some sort, where Cooper takes some first team reps down the line and whatnot. But for me, I think it's going to start Sunday. We're going to see what we're really going to have in Cooper Beebe, coming up here. And I think that could be a good step in the right direction for him. But at the same time, I mean, iron sharpens iron. So, I mean, if you got two guys, Cooper Beebe and Brock Hoffman, battling hard, and whoever doesn't get the job, that's a solid backup center. I mean, that's not a bad thing to have, because God forbid the other goes down. Not everybody on the team can snap the ball, So, if you got two quality guys, and I know Cooper, it's a transitional thing for him where it's not like it's not a natural position for him. But as long as he's getting the reps in, it seems like the muscle memory is getting better. I know he's still working on things, but having two studs, ready to rock and roll at that position, I think is going to be a good thing. So, we just have to wait and see. But I think this is a good pick. And, it's still early. I mean, he's a third-round pick. It's not like he was a first-rounder. So, even if he doesn't, for some reason, doesn't break through this year, it doesn't mean he's a bust. It just maybe he just needed a year under an NFL program, and then maybe next year he's good. I don't think that's the case. I'm just saying that's plausible if Brock Hoffman just balls out. But again, it's going to be a lot of fun to see what happens at center. And both guys at this point, I think they both have a shot. I think either way, I think whoever gets the job, I mean, the other one's going to be fine, and they're going to be on the team safely.
Yeah, I think back to Tyler Biadasz's rookie year too. He was a fourth-round pick, so not exactly the same situation, but kind of similar. And he didn't start until, I think, week 5 or 6, and that was specifically because Joe Looney got injured. And then he didn't even become like the full-time starter until the next year. So it could be a similar situation. Chris, we've gone through all of our players now, of 3 guys that have turned our heads, 3 that we need to see more from. 4 of them were rookies. 1 of them was a newcomer in Mike Zimmer to the team, and the other in Trey Lance is in his first offseason with the Cowboys. A lot of new faces that we're talking about here. I'll put you on the spot. Give me just one legit Cowboys veteran that you're the most excited to see play in this Sunday preseason game.
It's not okay. Am I able to cheat and say someone who's not a rookie but not necessarily a veteran either, or do I have to say a veteran?
Gotta be a legit vet.
How many veterans are even playing on Sunday? Is it going to be the whole team or what? I'm about to say, because I know some people rest and stuff. I don't want to say I don't want to say Dak and then he doesn't play. If everyone plays, I would be very excited to see Trayvon Diggs, because that's a guy who I was very adamant that after his what was it, 11 interception season, that he was the best corner in the league. And I even thought last season before he got hurt, he was playing very reliably in coverage. Like, I feel like the interception numbers weren't as high, but he still had 2 picks in 2 weeks, or at least he had one. He at least had one interception, and he was looking good, and like, he wasn't getting thrown to a lot, which I think is a good thing when you're a cornerback and you're not getting thrown to a lot, because that means you're not really getting beat a lot. So I think that the average what's the word that everyone uses, casual fan of the NFL, I think the average casual thinks of Trayvon Diggs as a big play or big mistake kind of cover guy, and I think that he's fix that for the most part, because I mean, even in 2022, his interception numbers weren't as high, but he was a better cover guy than he was that previous year when he had those 11 interceptions. So I'm excited to see him come back. I think this Cowboys team isn't as good on paper as it was last season, and I've said that I'm predicting a 10-win season, but I mean, if Trayvon Diggs comes back and he plays really, really elite, and then you have Deron Bland on the other side, and you have a newer Micah that's all over the field, and a Mike Zimmer that's getting constant pressure and really, really disguising the defense. I mean, I think this is a team that could be very, very good. I'm still concerned about the offense, but I am very excited to see Trayvon Diggs. I'm excited to see him next to Deron Bland, both on the outside, and being able to see them two play together, now that Deron Bland has really developed into the superstar that he is.
Yeah, I think I'm excited for Trayvon too. I think Monday was the first time that he came back on the field for actual team drills. So I would imagine that probably means they're not going to play him in this game, and they're probably just going to ease him in. But you never know. Either way, it's great to see him in team drills. He came off the PUP list pretty quickly too. Going to be really exciting to see him continue to work his way back into action with the Cowboys, coming off of that injury last year. And of course, we're going to be here every week to break it all down, to dissect it all. Next time that we are talking with you, we will be breaking down all the action from their first preseason game, finally getting an actual game. We've got to the real football part with training camp, but now we're getting an actual game with refs, with play calls, all the different things that we love. And it's coming on a Sunday too. Like, a lot of preseason games are like Friday, Saturday, like it's not real football yet. We get this one on a Sunday, so that's extra exciting. But until next week, when we get to talk about a real live Cowboys football game that happened, be sure to check us out, the Writer's Block podcast. Signing off for Brandon Clements, the icebreaker himself, and the one, the only Chris Halling in his dapper suit today. I'm David Howman, signing off for the Writer's Block. And remember, always go Cowboys.